Hey guys, Erica here with G105, and I'm very honored to have a resume expert, job search expert, Mir Garvy, with the coolest name ever with RTP Resumes. Welcome. Thank you for being with us today.
Thanks, Erica. So excited to be on the show, Graham. That's awesome.
Well, thank you for listening to the show, but also being a part of the show. And, with everybody basically having the rug ripped from underneath them, recently losing their jobs, maybe they just graduated and they can't get a job. We need your expert advice on how to help. How can they beef up that resume? How can they get into the working world even though we're in the middle of a pandemic? What are your key recommendations for everybody out there from all ages?
Yeah. Well, the recommendation for all ages really does boil down to get your materials together, prepare as much as you can, and network. Of course, that's all happening virtually right now. So that's the same whether you're 21 and just getting out of college or 45 and looking for work for the first time in 10 or 15 years. So that's a mutual kind of set of advice I would give to everybody. But of course, there are some things that are specific to recent grads, and there are some things that more experienced professionals would do a little differently.
So, what do you say to that graduate who's been looking forward to getting a job right out of school, but they can't find work? What do you say to that person?
Yeah, that's a tough one because they're up against more skilled, more experienced professionals who are willing to take a step back to a more entry level role right now because they're out of work. So it is really hard for recent grads to be competitive right now. I think number one, the job search can take a little longer than normal. So to expect that. Number two, if they can swing it, a unpaid internship is not a bad idea. So, a recent grad perhaps wanted to get a paid internship or job, perhaps wanted to get into their own apartment, and maybe moving back in with mom and dad might not be a bad idea right now. So that you can take an unpaid internship in the career field you want to get into, just to get those skills, to get something on your resume instead of having a long gap where you're either not working at all or you're working kind of a job that's just to pay the bills, which is fine. Do that, but also keep developing your skills, your network, and that may mean volunteer unpaid work.
When you say unpaid internship, moving back to mom and dad, and I know this is a little bit off, but people may see that as a setback, but maybe you could take this time to use that as some life lessons that maybe somebody like you and I didn't have because we had to jump straight into the working world. So maybe take this time to really develop your crafts and use those opportunities to live with mom and dad and use that unpaid internship to really be great. So when we get back to normal, you can really excel.
Oh, I agree 100%.
Now, what about those folks that have been in the same business or the same company for 20 years? They just got laid off. Where do they start?
Well, they start with polishing the LinkedIn profile and reaching out to everybody in their network. In my experience, a lot of people let their LinkedIn profiles kind of languish when they're not actively looking for work. So that's the number one thing. Before you tap into your network, make sure that your profile is current and looks good and presents your brand and your skills in a really positive light. So check on that. And then, yes, tap your network. There are people that you may have worked with 5 years ago, 8 years ago, 12 years ago that are, now in different companies in a position to lobby for you or pass on your resume or let you know about a job before it's been posted. So, that network is something a younger graduate doesn't really have yet. So as an older worker or more experienced worker, this is your chance to really leverage that network and let people help you. People want to help you, but we have to let them know how they can help us. So secondly, get your resume ready because that's going to be the next thing people ask to see. Yeah, I'd be glad to help you. Send me your resume. So have that ready so that you can give it to them same day, next day, instead of 2 weeks, which is really about what it typically takes to write a resume for a new client.
You mentioned LinkedIn. How important is social media in today's working world?
It's pretty big. I mean, it's always important, but the fact that we're doing networking virtually, you can't go for coffee, you can't go for lunch. So it's more important than ever. But we know that LinkedIn is always important. 94% of the time, recruiters and hiring managers are going to look you up on LinkedIn at some point during the job search process. So we know they're looking at it. We want it to be polished, professional, no discrepancies with the resume, get some recommendations, make sure your skills are aligned with the jobs you're targeting and they're not kind of old and dusty. So yeah, definitely, especially LinkedIn, but all your social platforms should be polished and professional. And if you have personal social media presences, you can either set those to private for the time being or clean them up somewhat. And then also make sure that your LinkedIn profile is set to public.
Now, if I were to go on an interview, say in the next few days, more than likely we're going to have a virtual interview virtually like this. What do I need to do to prepare myself for that? And what are some of the key things I need to add to my resume right now that I would email to that person?
So 2 good questions. Let me talk about the virtual interview first, because I hear people all the time say, oh, if I can just get the interview, I'm going to win the job because I'm really good in the interview situation. And a lot of people do feel that way. But even if you're a really effective face-to-face interviewer, talking to a computer screen, a little webcam and a green light is totally different. And a lot of people are unnerved by it. So some practice would be the main thing that I recommend. So good lighting, probably more makeup than you're used to wearing, and
better
practice
than this. I look like a ghost right now.
So that's tough. It's partly missing the face-to-face human interaction, and it's partly the weirdness of talking to a screen, and it's also partly making sure that you're getting the lighting and the camera angle correct.
Okay.
And as far as updating your resume, I think what we always say still applies, and that is make sure that the content on your resume is tailored for the jobs you're targeting. So people who find themselves suddenly unemployed may want to re-examine the target job. Maybe they don't need to look for a lateral move in terms of level, function, and industry. If they were downsized, their industry may be struggling right now, and they may need to look for roles in a different industry that they can do in an industry that's maintaining or even growing. And there are industries that are expanding right now, hard enough to believe as that is. But that resume needs to reflect that shift into either a new industry or a slightly different role. So that would be another piece of advice I would definitely share.
And even if you're working right now, I always have heard that it's great to keep your resume updated at all times. So your services are always in need. So how can people reach out to you to get that help?
Well, you can find us online at rtpresumes.com. And, I'm a proponent, obviously, of always having an updated resume on file. If your LinkedIn profile is optimized for the kinds of roles that you want to hear about, it's not uncommon to have a recruiter or headhunter reach out to you and ask about, hey, would you be interested in this role? And like I said, you want to be able to send that resume over in a couple of days versus in 2 weeks. So yeah, an updated resume on file is always a good thing.
And where do people even begin? I forgot to ask you that. Where do people begin to look for jobs? Like, say you have no clue where to start. Where do you go to find the jobs?
Couple big ones that are, kind of most top 3, I guess. Indeed.com, Glassdoor.com, and obviously LinkedIn has a job board, and that's quite good. But a lot of people are looking for either part-time contract roles where they may have 2 or 3 of those, or fully remote virtual roles. And there are some online job boards dedicated strictly to contract and or remote roles. And there are a number of them, and some of them are organized by niche. These are IT jobs, these are HR jobs. Probably the biggest is flexjobs.com. And again, everything there is a remote role that may or may not be contract or full-time, but they've all been vetted. So there aren't any scammy work from home jobs at Flex Jobs, but there are definitely plenty of other online job boards for remote part-time roles.
Well, thank you so much. Hopefully next time I get to see you in person. So,
that'd be great.
Better lighting, So thank you so much. rtpresumes.com. Reach out. You guys are wonderful, and we will keep in touch with you because I'm sure people will need your services in the near future. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate you having me on the show.
Bye. Thank you.